Okay, so today we're going to do Unit 2, Day 14 notes, which is comparing functions. So basically, we already know how to do these types of problems. The only difference is that we're going to be seeing two functions, and we're just going to be comparing them based on either the slope or the y-intercept. So let's go ahead and get started. Number one says, which situation is modeled by the equation y equals negative 15 plus 300? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each problem, or each answer choice I mean, and create an equation and see which one matches with the answer that I'm looking for. So let's start with the answer choice A. Maria has 300 in an account and deposits $15 each. Well, if I know I'm writing an equation, I know I'm going to have to identify the letter M and the letter B. Now the letter B is the initial value. How much did Maria start out with? $300. That's how much she deposited to begin with. And then she decided that each week she's going to do $15. So that means it's going to be 15 as the slope, because remember, the slope is represented by the words each, per, every, and the y-intercept, which is the letter B, is represented by the initial value, the starting point. Okay? So if we were to create an equation, y equals the m, which is 15x plus 300. As you can tell, these two equations are different because one is a negative 15 and the other one's a positive 15. So this cannot be the answer. Now, answer choice B says a car uses 15 gallons of gas to travel a total distance of 300. Okay, so for this one, we really can't write a linear equation for that. So for that one, for B, it doesn't work because they're giving us two initial values. Two initial values. So really, I can't do anything with letter B. Answer choice C, it says there are 300 people at a football game and 15 of the people have left at each hour. So the M will be negative 15 because 15 people are leaving each hour. So leaving means it's minus, it's a negative. People are leaving the game, so that's a negative. Then the B will be 300 because that was the initial amount of people at the game. So there was 300 people to begin with, and then every hour 15 people are leaving. So the 300 is the y-intercept, and the negative 15 is the m. So if I were to write an equation, we will have negative 15x plus 300. Okay? And of course, that's the same equation we were looking for, so your answer will be C. Okay. Number 2. It says Sean and Julie are landscapers. Each person charges a one-time fee plus an hourly fee. Sean uses the equation y equals 20x plus 30 to determine the charge. Julie uses a table to determine the charge. Which statement is true for these two landscapers? So if you look at the answer choices, they keep talking about the keywords one-time fee, one-time fee, one-time fee, one-time fee. So with that being said, the one-time fee we need to determine, is that a y-intercept or is that the slope? Well, remember, the slope has to have the word per or every or each. It basically has to happen over and over again over a certain amount of units or a certain amount of time. So here, this just says that it happens one time. It's a one-time fee, so automatically you know that will be your y-intercept. So in other words, they're asking you which person has the bigger y-intercept. So we have to determine, okay, does Sean have the bigger y-intercept or does Julie have the bigger y-intercept? So basically, let's start out with Sean. They tell us that Sean has an equation of y equals 20x plus 30. Using this equation, what is the y-intercept? Well, if you do y equals mx plus b, you should know that your letter B or your y-intercept is 30. Okay? So Sean has a y-intercept of 30. Now for Julie, to be able to find the y-intercept, I'm going to go back up to the table and determine what the y-intercept is. Well, clearly the y-intercept is 26 because anytime the x value is 0, we know that the y-intercept is 26. Okay? So, and remember, the first row of a sideways table is your x, and the bottom row of a table is your y. Okay? So with that being said, your y-intercept for Julie is 26. So looking at this, who has the greater y-intercept? Obviously Sean. So Sean charges a greater one-time fee. That could be a potential. So let's put a little star. Julie charges a greater one-time fee. That's not true. Sean charges a greater one-time fee. That could be it. And Julie charges a greater one-time fee. That's not it. So now we have to determine, is it A or C? And clearly the answer will be C, because if you continue reading the sentence, it says because the equation shows a greater y-intercept. And that's the one we were looking for. Versus A, which says because the equation shows a greater rate of change. Okay? So rate of change is not what we were looking for. We were looking for the y-intercept. That's how we determined that Sean had the greater one-time fee. So the answer will be C for this one. Okay, next one. Use function S and function T to answer the questions. So there's both functions. Which statement is true about the function S and function T? While looking at my statements, they keep comparing the slope. Okay, if you notice, the slopes are being compared. So that means they're asking me, which function has the bigger slope? Okay, so let's find the slope of function 1 versus function 2. Okay, so let's start with the table. Remember, to find the slope of each side, you have to find the difference. Okay, so let's start with the right side. 14 minus 8 should give you 6. 8 minus 2 is 6. 2 minus negative 4 is 6. 6 minus 2 is 3. 6 minus 2 is 4. And 2 minus negative 2 is also 4. And negative 2 minus negative 6 is also 4. So, if you were to set up your slope for that table, remember you got to do the right side over the left side. So that gives you 6 over 4. Now obviously, I don't like it as a fraction if I'm comparing. So I'm just going to convert that 6 over 4 into a decimal. And it comes out to be 1.5. So the slope for this one, for function 1, is 1.5. Now let's look at function 2. Function 2, we have the equation y equals 4x plus 6. Remember, it's y equals mx plus b, and we're looking for the slope. So the slope is just basically the 4, the number in front of the x. So the slope is 4. Now that we have both the slopes, we can compare. Answer choice A. Function S is equal to function T. Yeah? Is that true? Nope. They're not equal. That's not true. The slopes are not equal. So next thing. The slope of function S is steeper than the slope of function T. Now the word steeper. Anytime you ever see the word steeper, just mark it out and put bigger. Okay? S is bigger than T. S is bigger than T. That's not true. Okay, moving on. It says the slope of function S is not as steep. Change that to big. So let's try this again. The slope of function S is not as big as the slope of T. S is not as big as T. That's true. This is not as big as that. So the answer is C. Okay? And of course, D says you cannot determine the slopes. That's a lie, because we were able to determine the slopes. Okay, moving on. Now, problem number 4. Okay? It says the graph of function 1 and the equation of function 2 are shown below. Which statement is true about function 1 and function 2? Well, if you look at your answer choices, it keeps talking about rate of change, rate of change, rate of change, rate of change. Rate of change is just the nickname for the word slope. So if you don't like the rate of change it to the word slope. Okay? Slope. So they're asking you, how do they compare the slopes of these two functions? Okay? So let's start with function 1 versus function 2. And I'm going to say F1, F2, okay? So F1, they're asking me to find the slope of that function. So what you need to do is you need to find 2 points that you can use. So I'm going to use this one and that one. And of course, I'm going to do the rise over the run. So the rise is 3 and the run is 2. So my slope for the first one is 3 over 2. Now, moving on. What's the slope of the second function? Well, you notice in equations the y equals mx plus b. So the m, which is the slope, is -4. So m equals -4. Well, let's compare. Function 2 has a greater slope than function 1. So they're saying this is bigger than that. That's not true. Okay. Function 1 is bigger than, function 1 has a greater slope because the slope of function 1 is 5. That's not true. The slope of function 1 is not 5. Function 2 has a greater slope because the slope of function 1 is -4. That's a lie. And function 1 has a greater slope because the slope of function 1 is 3/2, okay? And the slope of function 2 is -4. So that's your answer right there. This is bigger than that because the slope of 1 is 3/2 and the slope of 2 is -4. Okay, so the answer is D. Okay, let's go and flip to the next page of these notes. We are not going to do number 5. So if you want to do number 5, that will be up to you. But we're going to move on to number 6. Now, it says use the graph below to answer the question. Which statement is true about Connie's savings? And if you notice, it talks about Connie started with $25, then she deposited some amount each week, okay? Started each week. Started each week. So here's the thing, okay? I see the word started. That means y-intercept. Each week. That should tell me the slope. So because of that, I know that they're asking me to find the y-intercept and the slope of this table or of this graph. So I can easily do that, okay? So let's start with the y-intercept. What's the y-intercept? What's the initial value? Where does this line start? Or where does this line touch the y-axis? It touches right here at 25. So the y-intercept is 25. Now let's do the slope. Remember, the slope is the rise over the run. So I'm going to choose 2 points. I'm going to use the one I already put down and this one. Or actually, I'm just going to use this one up here. Okay? So it really doesn't matter which one you would choose. So I'm just going to, actually, I'm just going to use these 2 right here, but you could have used any one of those 3, okay? So 5, 10, 15. So the rise is 15. And the run is 1. So 15 over 1, which you should know simplifies to 15. So the slope for this problem is 15. Okay? Now, if we're reading the problems. We know that the y-intercept we said was 25 and that the slope is 15. So we know that she started with 25 and she's going to put 15 each week. Okay? So let's look for the statement that says that she started with 25 and is going to put 15 each week. So let's do that. Connie started with 25, but she's going to put 40 each week. That's wrong. She's going to start with 25, then put 15 each week. Your answer is B. Okay, simple as that. And as for number 7, we're not going to work that one out either. If you want to, you can work out number 5 and number 7 by yourself. But if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask me in class the next day.